Hello, my friends. Allysia here, and today I wanted to talk about something that you've almost surely thought about at some point in your life because it's a really, really common thought exercise, thought experiment that people do when they're trying to think about what they're passionate about. And the age old question that you've definitely thought about is what was I passionate about when I was a child? Not even what was I passionate about, what did I just do? How did I spend my time as a child? Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because, as I've mentioned earlier, I went through a fairly rigorous quarterly planning session, which didn't just involve planning the next quarter. It involved thinking through what I want in the next 5 years, which does mean connecting to the activities that I feel passionate about, the things that I've been the most strongly connected to since I was a child. So, what was I interested in as a child? When I started thinking about this, there were two dominant threads that seem to have stuck throughout my entire life that seemed the most important to focus on. And then there's kind of like corollary things from there too. So one is writing and one is music. So with writing, like I remember being 3 and I had this like little desk table thing. It was like a little kid table. And I would pull out my mom's university textbooks and highlight the words, and I would have like my own little notebook where I would take notes, but I couldn't actually write. It was like child line scribbles, and I loved doing that. Once I started getting a little bit older, I actually started to enjoy writing. I always loved reading. I wrote tons of stories. And tons of like half finished stories. I've been journaling since I was really young. So, writing is something that's been a theme from a really young age, and it continues to be relevant and important to me even now. So, one thing that I was thinking about is what did I love doing as a child? But not just that. What did I love doing as a child that has stuck with me since, in some way or other? Even if there's been an ebb and like a flow to it where maybe there's like a period of a few years where my interest in it kind of wanes, but it always cycles back into my regular life. So writing was one. Music, of course, probably unsurprisingly, is another one. So I know that my family tells a story of how I had this like Cinderella cassette tape, and I had like this little kid cassette tape player. Yes, I am old enough to have used cassette tapes probably until I was like 12. But I had this like Cinderella soundtrack on cassette, and I memorized the lyrics again when I was like 3 to like the whole soundtrack and like sang it for my family and stuff like that. So I've always loved singing. And I started learning piano when I was 5 or 6, and I started songwriting not that long after. So self-expression via writing and via music. I think it's important to note that if I dig into the root of writing and if I dig into the root of music, those art forms can mean a lot of different things to different people. But for me, the root of them is self-expression. So, for example, some people might be interested in music in like a kind of like a technical mastery way. Like, man, I want to be like the best piano player or things like that. But for me, learning piano, though I do enjoy getting better at it, it's always sort of a means to an end of self-expression. Or maybe like a writer, might be a writer who's really interested in just like deep research and learning new things as opposed to say self-expression. So I like to look at the activities themselves and then figure out, okay, why did I like that activity? Why do I continue to like that activity? What is the common theme that's happening here? And of course, music has continued to be a part of my life. I've been a piano teacher. I have a music YouTube channel. I've been in bands since I was a teenager. And when I think a little further too, so like some of the side quest things is I was really into art when I was a kid, but that's something that's dropped off as an adult. So like visual art, like drawing, things like that. So I don't place as much importance on it. I don't have a strong connection to wanting to draw, even though it's like a skill I can pull out of the bag if I want to. I've done a lot of theater as well, like theater, film, acting, stuff like that. But again, that was sort of like kind of an artistic experiment as opposed to a theme that's run through my entire life. So it seems to be fairly typical that artists just like to put their hands in all kinds of different crafts and try things out. And that's been my experience as well, where I've tried a wide swath of the arts, but there are a couple that I always circle back around to. And So I felt that this has been a valuable exercise for me thinking in terms of the next 5 years, because it gives me a sense of what I want to prioritize in the next 5 years. So two things, I mean, there's a lot of things that I could say to that, and I want to keep talking about this in future videos, but the two things are that I want to write books, and I'll get to this. I want to write books, and I want to record music and, continue sharing YouTube videos and stuff. So back to the book thing, I realized not that long ago that I've accidentally created two books. So one of them is like a practice journal, which totally doesn't count. It's not like a book in a book sense. It's not content heavy, right? It's not a content rich book. But then in February, I self-published a book called Design Your Own Piano Path, just to go along with the course that I had created. So I had no intention of releasing a book. I'd written it a couple summers ago, sort of as like a reference to myself, and I had no idea what I was ever going to do with it. Then I decided to turn it into a piano course and sort of just accidentally published it as a book because I wanted to be able to give free copies to people who were joining the course as like part of a promotional period. So I have actually sort of fakely, accidentally written a couple books, but I would like to really take that further, even as early as next year. I would love to like write a lot of books. So the content and stuff is variable. That's kind of like a next year thing, but it is something that I'm glad I took the time to dig up the past and think about what was important to me as a child, just to kind of come to that. And the other thing with music, it's not just about recording albums, though I want to do that. It's not just about performing, though maybe in a non-COVID world I would want to do that more. But it's also about kind of like exploring and expanding my ability to like express myself. So I want to learn things like Ableton. I want to know how to use like both, like just, in the editing version, I wanted to be able to use Ableton Live, to explore and expand my repertoire of it's like my musical expression toolkit. So there's a lot of things that when I connected to child Allysia, it was really useful when I was also connecting to future Allysia to kind of see if there's a continuity and if there's a way to honor my true nature, essentially. So really useful exercise. Of course, like I said before, it's one that you've almost definitely done, but I do encourage you to think it through in a couple different layers as well. So not just what did I love doing as a kid, but what did I love doing as a kid? And have I sort of been doing that ever since? Even if you've kind of put it on the shelf a little bit, has it just always been in your head? Or was it something that you did as a kid and you're like, good, you're fine, that you're not doing it anymore? And then the other aspect is thinking, okay, why did I do that as a kid? What's the root commonality, if there is one, between the things that I love doing? Is there like a root essence? So for me, it's self-expression. So whatever I end up doing in life, whether it's creating videos like this or writing music or writing books or whatever, the deep value that I get from it, and that I've always gotten from it, is that I just love to express myself as a way to connect. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that that old tried and true exercise with you guys, and I'll catch you tomorrow.